Order at 6:05 p.m. And we'll start with the salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine Law Notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment, to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held through the Zoom meeting platform only, being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this special council meeting of June 13th, 2022 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting is being called by the Fairhaven Mayor and Council. Notice of this special meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on June 9th, 2022. Notice was also posted on the Borough website, Facebook page, Constant Contact, bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Christner Keefe,
Here.
Cole,
Here.
Koch,
Here.
McHugh,
Here.
Neff,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
and Administrator Casagrande, Chief McGovern, Engineer Gardella, and Architect Goldstein, who are also in attendance.
Thank you, Allison. Today's discussion will be about borough facilities. I'd like to thank the Facilities Committee for being with us today for this special meeting, as well as all of our borough professionals and the governing body. With that being said, Teresa, would you like to take it away?
Yes, Mayor. Just to refresh everyone's memory, we have discussed the facilities on multiple occasions. Eli is presented to the governing body, and as it rolled into our 2022 bond ordinance considerations and some of the other things that we were considering funding for this year, there was a desire among the governing body members to work with the Facilities Committee, and they had a couple of concerns regarding how we might work together to see if we could bring some of the costs down, with the not wanting to fund an additional amount for facilities beyond what was already funded. So basically, fundamentally, we had a brief follow-up discussion on that, and it was decided that it would best to bring this back to the full governing body. Eli's with us tonight. The governing body members did have some thoughts on whether or not it was possible to reduce the cost of the PD building, which I'll allow Eli to speak to by eliminating the basement. But then there was a desire amongst certainly some of the governing body members, if not the majority, to possibly explore looking at that back building and whether or not we could come up with meeting space to replace the community center that will be demolished after the PD building is built. We also talked about the DPW and what could be done to reduce the overall driving cost of that building. I think Eli will start with the PD building and speak to the two issues at hand, one being whether it was possible to save some money on the front building and looking to expand the back building and what that may cost us in general terms.
Thank you, Teresa. So the question had been asked whether it was feasible to eliminate the basement of the police building, and the short answer is yes, it's possible to eliminate it. You may recall that originally we had a full basement, and then about, 6 months ago, the question was, could we shrink it? It was originally a full basement because the thought was to use that as archives and storage for various departments. And then after much discussion, it was concluded that much space wasn't needed and some of the departments didn't want to use that space. So we shrank it, and there was a building committee meeting, which we talked at length about shrinking it to its current size. It could be shrunk further, but there are other things in the basement besides storage, which are the evidence storage, the armory, and the mechanical and electrical equipment rooms, and the elevator equipment room for the building. And you may recall that the footprint of the building is very tightly constrained by the surrounding parking. And so in order to eliminate the basement entirely, we'd have to completely redo the plan of the building on the upper levels in order to accommodate the spaces that are in the basement. And so that would be an enormous job, would require a lot of redo of the design and engineering drawings. It would take months to do and would cost a significant amount of money. So another thought was to just reduce the basement to its minimal size, so it's just big enough for the things other than storage that are down there. And that would save some construction costs, but that too would delay the project and require additional engineering, because there's an entire structure holding up the second floor over the storage area, which would be changed to a slab on grade, which would require redoing all the structural drawings, or many of them, as well as the engineering drawings, mechanical, electrical. And we're not sure that you'd save enough by reducing the basement to offset all the time and cost the engineering, plus whatever inflation hits the overall project by delaying the bidding of the job. So our recommendation would be to not change the police building.
I guess we can go with questions based on the statement he just made. I'll just work my way around the dais for anyone that wants to ask Eli a question. Councilwoman Cole.
Thank you very much, Mayor. In what area, Eli, would you suggest we could save some money?
I think that the public works, certainly, and I guess
In
we
the
can,
PD building.
on the PD building, I don't see any place that's going to save a significant amount of money. There are a few little odds and ends that might save a few dollars. You know, if we took the stone off the base, might save $10,000, $20,000 or whatever. But the rest of the materials in the building are very economical. There's nothing fancy anywhere in it. We have drywall, painted drywall for most of the interior, except for the parts that are required by the Department of Corrections to be block or concrete block or reinforced concrete. The outside is just residential siding. The windows are residential windows. The roofing is residential roofing. The insulation and all the stuff that's inside the walls is what's required to meet the energy code. I don't
So
see
I
any,
think we should probably take steps in whatever areas we're able to. I think skim coating the foundation wall instead of the stone would certainly save some money. You can come in with landscaping afterwards in future years if that's the will of the governing body. I also think there could be some savings in the simple things, perhaps the wrap around the faux chimneys. You know, sometimes it does come down to a few little things. And I don't think that they dramatically alter what is the attempt, what is being delivered in terms of a nice building that sets us up for years to come. So those would be a couple of suggestions. I'd like to see those done. I think it would save, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, Eli, and say we probably would save more than 10,000, wouldn't you?
I said 10 or 20,000 for
Did
the,
you do
I was
that?
speaking of the stone.
So that's what I think. All of those little decisions can add up. I don't believe that we would dramatically alter the building or dramatically alter the price that much either. But if you were to probe a little bit more, do you think you could find some additional saving somewhere inside? I know that there are a number of bathrooms.
Well, again, once we start getting into changes that are going to require re-engineering and revising drawings, at the current rate of inflation, which is on the order of 0.5% a month, that means for a $10 million job, that means what, 50,000 a month in construction costs. So
Yes, I'm
to delay the
sufficiently
bidding for
afraid.
a month. I'm sorry.
I said I'm sufficiently concerned. I certainly appreciate what you're saying. I'm asking you if there are some additional ways to save money on the interior.
I don't think so. It's all drywall and metal doors. The hardware is what's got to be there for code or for security. As I said, there are residential windows, residential roofing, residential siding. There's nothing fancy. The finishes on the floors are carpet and vinyl tile.
What is the number of bathrooms on the first floor? 1, 2, 3.
One of them is for the public if they come in for an interview, and the other is for the cell block as required by the Department of Corrections.
I might be looking at this wrong, Eli, but I'm counting 4 bathrooms. Is that correct? On the first floor?
Let me pull up the plan.
Sure.
Bear with me a second.
And then I'll just add while you're pulling that up, there's 2 additional bathrooms on the second floor.
The second floor, those are the locker rooms for the patrol officers. Give me a moment. I wasn't sure which documents to have ready tonight because I wasn't sure what questions I'd be asked.
Take your time. Where I'm going is even if we have space for 1, 2, 3, 4 bathrooms on the first floor, perhaps at this time we build the minimum, maybe it's 2 and come back later.
Eli, I can answer that.
Bathroom.
Go ahead, Chief.
I can answer the bathrooms. On the first floor, there is 2 bathrooms, one for, we'll say, employees and visitors. And then the second bathroom is next to the cells for prisoners that are not in the cells. And then what you might be looking at, there's a toilet and a sink in the actual cells. That may be what you're looking at. There's actually only 2 bathrooms plus the cells on the first floor.
So in the middle of the first floor drawing where it shows showers, is that?
That's for the prisoners. Yes, that's part of the, like you said, you required to have that. That's in the cell area.
And then the one that's just to the right of that, where it's off of an interview room?
Yes, and that's for a prisoner that's not in the cell. If you got people, not everybody goes in a cell. So if you're doing an interview or you're processing, that would be their bathroom for while you're processing.
So let me ask it this way. What bathrooms are not technically required according to, state guidelines for police departments?
Well, I think the one of the things is that second bathroom downstairs is a handicap bathroom. So you're required to have at least 1 handicap bathroom on that floor. Eli, correct me if I'm not correct, but that was, and then we put a very small bathroom in the interview processing room.
Correct. You can see that on the screen, right? Everyone see that?
I see it, yes.
Yeah, these are the ones that are required for the cell block itself. This was meant to be for the staff on the first floor, and this was meant for visitors.
Are they all required?
Well, these are absolutely required. You should have something for the public as to whether, there's no code requirement for one for staff. I suppose you could perhaps consider this one as optional.
And then what about the second floor, Eli? Is that all locker rooms?
Yeah, this is all locker rooms. Yeah.
So there's the potential to have the space for, but not trick it out for, I mean, obviously that would be some money.
You mean this
Not a
one
lot.
on the first floor?
Yeah, the optional was the word you used to
I
describe.
guess you could be that as an alternate, just say leave it rough.
Mhm. And then what's the cost per square foot on the excavation and foundation work? Because obviously I think we need some basement on, but what was the cost per square foot so we could start to understand?
I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. I'd have to go through and pick pieces out of the estimate. It's the cost of excavating, the cost of drainage, the cost of waterproofing, the cost of the concrete. It's
Mhm.
all those costs. It's not an easy answer.
So where can you limit the basement without dramatically altering the structure itself?
Let's look at the basement. Anything right now, you can see there's structural columns here. And there's a structural frame above this area. That's the area of the storage. So to change this and get rid of this part of the basement would affect numerous drawings, both architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, site.
Yeah.
It would affect dozens of drawings to eliminate this.
Yes. Well, it's a shame we
Also
didn't
would
get
affect
to
the
see it
specs
before
because of
now.
the
But
elimination of doors and frames and hardware.
so what I was asking you, because I certainly understand that, but where can we limit the basement? Perhaps in that south side here. Is there any way to limit the
If you
basement?
got rid of the storage area, the basement could end here
Mhm.
and everything above it would stay and everything down here would go.
It would be good to understand what the savings may be. We do have other buildings that can receive storage, but Chief, can you tell us how critical the storage in the basement is?
Well, that area there, like his point was that it is not critical, but my understanding, what he's trying to say is that to redraw the plans to try to eliminate that more in the long run. We talked about it a while ago about eliminating that whole space, if you remember. Eli, I don't know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, a year ago. And then it was
Yes.
decided they wanted to keep that space and the savings was not great. But obviously, I have no idea how much the savings would be for that. So could we eliminate? The answer is yes. The question is, would it save enough to offset the time and the re-engineering it?
All right, I did hear Eli say that. I feel we're in a difficult position because we have an expensive building and an expensive time to build buildings in a community that doesn't have a lot of money to fund buildings. So perhaps the other council members have some ideas. I'll circle back if I have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Cole. Councilman McHugh? Any questions based on this specific discussion?
Mike, you're on mute.
I think we'd have this down by now. All right, sorry. Thank you, Eli, for providing that background on this. It looks like that solid line midway through the Sally Port, is that where the basement ends currently?
The basement ends here.
Eli,
Under
do
here.
you remember how much the change in cost was when by kind of getting rid of that basement area to the west of the Sally Port? Was the
I don't
delta that?
recall. Don't recall.
All right. Other question, you said residential siding. Can you specify what kind of siding we have? Is it hardy or is it vinyl?
It's hardy board, yeah.
What's the life expectancy usage compared to hardy board to vinyl? Is there a difference?
Well, actually, I just went through this on another project. I think they have pretty much the same length warranty, but the problem with the vinyl is that it needs a smooth surface in which to attach it. And there was a code change a couple of years ago, which requires us to put what's called continuous insulation on the outside of the studs before we put on the siding. And the system that's specified and detailed is one in which there are, this is a term of art, there are things called girts, which are like channels every 16 inches, which hold the continuous insulation to the studs. And those channels have thickness to them. As a result, we do not have a planar surface. There's a bump every 16 inches. So we don't have a planar surface to attach vinyl to it. As a result, we'd have to completely redesign the innards of the exterior walls if we wanted to go with vinyl.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. No further questions.
Thank you, Councilman McHugh. Councilwoman Koch?
I don't have any questions right now, but if I do, I'd like to have the opportunity to ask them at a later time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Rodriguez?
I don't have questions. I want to just thank the council for their patience as they work through these issues, because this is probably the fourth or fifth iteration of designs for the police department. Surely it's a lot to consume. We didn't get here in the last 6 months. It's taken about 7 years to get here. And I think if people continue to be productive, we will find a way to lock this down and get the bid specs out so that we can get some quotes back and potentially provide our police force with an appropriate building. I realize it is expensive. It was less expensive a year ago. It was far less expensive 3 years ago. I think if we try to do a redesign and we wait, I have a feeling it's not going to play out in our favor, but you never know. It could. I suspect interest rates will go up, and I think material costs will go up. Labor costs always go up with the cost of living. So just a lot of things to consider. Just I would urge everybody to remain calm and logical about this, and work together to try to find a good compromise to get this building spec'd out, bid out, and then kick off the construction phase. So I'll turn the time back to the rest of the folks.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Neff?
Yes, thank you. Eli, would this be a good time to ask about the multi-purpose room that is being proposed here as part of the second structure? In addition to the storage for the police?
I'm happy to talk about it if that's what
I would say, Councilwoman Neff, if you could, just let's get through you and Meg on this issue. And I think that's the only secondary issue on this building. And then we could just finish up on the police department, if that's okay.
So you want me to talk about that as a second
Yes.
one
Do
later?
you have any questions as to the basement or changes on the main building?
I don't have any questions. I guess my reaction is that we have gotten to a place that at this stage, I agree with Eli that every month that goes by, it will cost us more to redesign this building. And for good or for bad, it seems that to me that the plans were built with the expectation that a basement will be there to support the floors above it. I would not support the idea of cutting down the bathrooms. I think the employees should have their own bathroom. I think the public should have their own bathroom. It seems to me like the right number of bathrooms are there. That's my reaction. And looking at the plans, I also would not support the idea of putting vinyl in. I think we should make something, things look nice, and I think hardy board looks a lot nicer. I think just, my overall view is that this is what it is. Maybe we can make some cuts, but I guess I'm getting the picture from Eli that it might not be worth exploring much further than what we have. That's my reaction to what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Christner Keefe.
Thank you. I have a question for the committee, and thank you for your work and for being here tonight. Is there anything in the current proposed plan that either didn't capture something you were hoping for in terms of a feature, or something you discussed that just didn't work out? We're looking at these plans after you've worked hard to prepare them and work with Eli directly and your committee members to put it together. But I'm interested in some of the dialogue or any of the iterations that went around, and just so I can understand how you got from point A to point B. And I realize that there's been many points in between, so maybe A to Z, I don't know.
Is that question directed at me?
No, more so toward some of the committee members who are here.
Mayor, if I could say so.
Absolutely, Chief.
Yeah, I've been on this project obviously from the very beginning, and like the different siding and the windows and the stone on the bottom, that was put in there because from the input from the committee, because they wanted it to really fit in the neighborhood. So a lot of that stuff was put in for that reason. Just like the basement, like I said, we talked about originally with a full basement, and speaking to Eli, we like maybe we get rid of the basement and eliminate it, and then it was by the committee like maybe we should keep the basement so we do have storage in the future. And now that it's designed, obviously there will be some cost to it. Even like the bathrooms, I think we did a good job, kept everything to the minimum. There's really nothing in there. We got rid of the one staircase going downstairs to save some money. And this has been worked on a long time, but a lot of stuff, the design of it and the look of it was done from input from the committee to try to make it fit into residential areas so it wouldn't look like an office building. That's why a lot of that was done.
Yeah, and Chief, you were next on my list to ask, but since you went first, I have a specific question for you. Is there anything functionally from your perspective that's not there?
No, when we started this, I drew it on a napkin and Eli fixed it. So there's some stuff I left out that Eli put in there, and I even questioned like, why do we need this? And a lot of stuff has to do with code, because there are like a shower. The perfect example is like the shower in cells. Like he put that in, like, why do we need that? And per code, you have to have that. So all that stuff was pretty much at the minimum that we had to have.
Okay, great. But functionally, you see this as a way to
absolutely. Yeah, I've been working out with Eli since day one. Absolutely, is perfect, really. So thank you.
Sure.
Councilwoman Christner Keefe, this is Bob Gasparini.
Hey, Bob.
How are you?
Hi.
So to answer your question, I think I came into this probably about 2/3 of the way through, and my perspective on it, and I don't want to speak for the rest of the committee, but was always to achieve the best possible building for the police department that was functional, up to code, up to normal operating standards, and then also to carry us through for a long time into the future by building in durable materials, functional spaces. We didn't want to create spaces that might be unusable in the future, all while trying to maintain a reasonable cost. Cost was always at the top of our minds to try to tweak here and there to achieve some level of savings without sort of going back to the chief and the police department, who protect us every day, and say, well, can you compromise here or maybe do without this or that? We just tried to achieve, like I said, the level of professionalism in the building and design of the building at the best possible cost. And also to, wanted to fit into the neighborhood. Sure, we could change some of the exterior design features of the building to sort of cut, like Eli said, 10,000, 20,000 here or there. but to what, to what expense or to what, cost is that? And that's to, okay, instead of having a nice, stone veneer on the bottom, you just have a, skim coated concrete, foundation, or vinyl siding, which is going to kind of look, not so great in a short period of time. Short meaning 5 years, 10 years, it wears and it has to be cleaned and maintained. So I think to answer your question, at least I hope so, that, we always viewed this project with an eye towards the cost to the town in relation to the benefit that the town was going to receive from having a building to house their police department that was sort of worthy of their being there.
Sure. Thank you so much for that feedback. I appreciate it.
Councilwoman, do you have more questions?
No, I guess nobody else has any feedback from the committee.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Eli, I think now would be a good time to talk on that back building.
Mayor,
Sorry.
sorry. I know I did have an additional comment
Sure.
or question. Sorry. Councilman Cole, I just want to echo some of your comments that if there are opportunities for savings that make sense, a lot of small things can add up to a larger sum, and to the extent it's possible, that would be super. Also, I think we should be mindful of the mounting and increasing costs that are continuing, and I support proceeding to get this project initiated, in the shovel in the ground as soon as we can, but obviously with a mind and eye toward where we can make decisions that will impact the savings. Do we currently have a plan for who will be primarily responsible for making decisions like that? Such as this toilet or that toilet, this one's $500, that one's $1,000, things like this.
Well, I would suggest, and I don't know who's prepared to answer that question, but in my mind, I thought we could do some items as an ad alternate when we bid it out. So for example, the masonry stone siding, that could be an ad alternate. And we can understand the cost difference.
Actually, that would be very hard to do because, not that it would be impossible, but we would have to come up with a whole new set of details for the base bid without it. Because right now it's designed, the foundations are designed to support it. Everything is there. We'd have to come up with a whole family of changes to the details to show what would be there without it. It would affect the foundation.
Well, Eli, that may be the case, and certainly we wouldn't.
I understand. I just want you to be aware that it's not like asking them to do a bathroom with and without its fixtures, where you just say, price it rough plumbed and we'll add the fixtures as an extra. In this case, it affects the detailing of the exterior walls, which is more involved than that. That's all.
There is also public contracting law that is tied to bidding and alternates. And, there's, you have to rank them because the purpose is so you can't pick and choose your alternates to get your bidder. In other words, you wouldn't be able to say, I'm taking this bidder because I'm picking, these 6 alternates, and he happens to come in lower with those 6, but if you picked another 6 or 5 or 4, somebody else would be the lowest bidder. So they're very, Eli or Greg could expand on that more so than I could from a legal perspective, but I believe that is a concern when you start putting things in as alternates. Is that correct,
Yes,
Eli?
that is correct. You have to rank them in the bid package. So you'd have to agree, the governing body would have to agree that, in order to take alternate 2, you'd have to take alternate 1 before you could take 2. You'd have to take alternate 1 and 2 before you could take alternate 3, and so on. So, that's one of the reasons why we discourage alternates that are relatively small in the overall scale of the project. For instance, while it would be true that the bathroom, that near the front lobby of the police department, if it weren't outfitted, you might save, let's just throw out $15,000. If it didn't have the fixtures and tile in it, that's a drop in the bucket in a $10 million job. So, and whether that should be part of this ranking system, you'd have to decide for yourself.
Thank you. With no more questions on this topic and limited amount of time, I'd like to move on. Eli, if you can present on what was originally a back storage building and now has been discussed as possibly being meeting space.
And I do want to keep in mind that, Eli was not asked to design this back building. He was just asked to give us an idea of whether it was doable within the open space or within the Rossi space we had the restrictions on, and whether or not a general estimate on a budget of what the first design versus the enclosed community center space would look like.
So bear with me just one second. Everyone see that?
Mhm.
Okay, so as we discussed in the last meeting, as currently designed, there's a patio here that's 20 feet deep and 37 feet wide. And what we're asked to do was to add a bay of another 10 feet here, making a room that was 1,100 square feet as a multi-purpose room. And then we proposed adding doors out here and here. So you have these two means of egress, which we're required to have, and you come through a vestibule to get in the building. Then we also tucked a kitchenette here. The plumbing in the bathrooms, of course, was part of the original job. This was a good place to put the kitchenette because it's recessed and can tie into the same plumbing as the rest of the building and still maintain barrier-free access to the bathrooms. So, and of course we can fine tune this, but this was the basis for our estimate. So we asked our consultants, site and civil engineer, structural engineer, mechanical, electrical engineers, and we all went through and figured out what the implications of this would be. It adds foundations, it adds roofing, it adds roof structure, it adds columns, it adds walls and windows, it adds doors, frames, and hardware, it adds the kitchenette, it adds a ceiling, it adds flooring. This is under the assumption that the equipment, mechanical equipment, would be in the gable space above a flat ceiling. So there would be, you may recall that this has a pitched roof over it. There's enough volume up there, we think, for the equipment. There might be some condensing units on the ground. And there are some minor impacts to the site work in terms of drainage and so on. And of course, there's a little more excavation as well. And a larger slab. We had a slab that came to here, it's got to come to here. And also because it's now going to be indoors rather than outdoor space, we have to put insulation along the perimeter of the slab. We have to insulate the walls. We have to put continuous insulation on the walls. We have to put siding on the walls. It affects everything. Our first budget for this, our guesstimate as to the order of magnitude of this work, is it adds about $350,000 to the cost of the storage building in terms of construction. And it might be a little more or less, but that includes all the architectural changes, the structural changes, and then it includes lighting and power, heating and air conditioning, a larger electrical service because of the fact that it was a minimal service when it was the previous building because there was no air conditioning, there was minimal electrical work. And now we're putting a large HVAC load. Plus, we're adding more lighting. We're adding plumbing for the kitchenette the kitchenette itself. We have to meet the energy conservation code. We have lighting, we have, I believe we're going to need sensors for the lighting, and we have controls for the air conditioning and heating. And we have emergency lighting because it's a place of assembly. So there's a lot packed into this. It may seem simple, it's just one room, but it's got a lot of stuff that's got to go in there to meet code. Fire extinguisher cabinets and so on.
Thank you, Eli. Questions starting this side with Councilwoman Christner Keefe.
Thank you. Just quick question off the bat here. It doesn't say here. This is ground level off the back of the police department?
It's off the back of their storage building.
Off the back of the storage building. Okay. And
I can show you the site plan if that would help.
sure, if you can flip to that, that would be helpful. Do you have an elevation for it also?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see both.
Yeah, hold on. Well, okay, first, here's the site plan. So here's the police building, here's the storage building, and this is where the room would be.
Okay. And size-wise, is it comparable, smaller, or bigger than the existing community center building space, floor space?
It's a little smaller,
Okay.
just slightly smaller,
200 square feet.
200 square feet. So this, let's see if I have elevations. Yeah. So here's what the building looks like from the end. This was the end we're adding to, so you won't, we put the equipment up here, and this will have a new wall in front of this wall, which would be the front wall of the room facing toward the rec area.
Okay.
This is what it looked like when it was a patio with the doors to the bathrooms.
I think one of my comments is that, just so I can understand it, the kitchenette is open to the room. Is that accurate? It's more like a bank.
Right here.
Right, but it's like a bank of cabinets and whatever, refrigerator.
Yep, yep.
I think, that would be, it would be more functional in my mind if that were separated or partitioned off. I would not suggest, if that were the case and it's achievable, I would not suggest doing it right there. Because then you'll lose quite a bit of the room. But if there's a way to rework some of that space to actually create a kitchenette.
Is the concern that you don't want to see it, or what is the concern?
I'm sorry?
Is the concern that you don't want to see it always?
Right. Or that if you are kicking a ball around or whatever, you might knock over, I don't know, the thing of milk.
What I would like to suggest, if we want to get the most use out of the room, is we could just put a big set of doors that you can flip open against the walls and close it when you don't need it. But we're trying to give you keep the room as unobstructed as possible to give you as much flexibility as possible.
What is the dimensions of?
30 feet this way and 37 feet this way.
Okay. And I see, it's hard to tell from this drawing. Are there windows proposed?
Yes, there are windows proposed around these sides.
Is that a certain height above ground level?
We haven't designed it. We just made an educated guess as to how big they would be.
Okay. And I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see any storage space for the multi-purpose room.
Currently none is shown. We could certainly add it, but that would just add a few dollars more.
Okay. And the entrance to the multipurpose room?
Well, just to keep it simple for the purpose of this exercise, since we already had vestibules, we decided you just come in there to get in the building. We don't have to do it that way, but it was, whether these doors are here or somewhere else, we still have to pay for doors. So
Are the vestibules to the restrooms required?
they're not required. They were put there because you need, for energy conservation, you have to have a vestibule at the entrances to the building. By doing it this way, we can use the vestibules we've already had so that you can lock off these doors when the room is not in use and let people go into the bathrooms, or you could unlock these doors and they could come in to multi-purpose room. But we were trying to use what we had as much as possible, just to give you a sense of the order of magnitude of what the construction is going to cost. It doesn't have to be this way.
I
We didn't want to go too far.
Right. I realize this is a first look at this. Is there an idea of creating a joint vestibule and both restrooms off of that, and then the vestibule is through which, so there's one entrance rather than two? I don't know. And I'm just spitballing ideas. I mean,
We could certainly do that, but that we require redesigning the part of the building that's already been finished, which is just going to add to the cost of the project.
right. I'm just trying to think of some efficiencies, or if we're able to marry those to create some storage. Quite honestly, I feel like that without storage in this space, I just know at the current community center, there is storage and it is used.
Well, we could pull the kitchenette forward. We could make this entire back wall kitchenette and storage closets. Just you'd lose a couple of feet of space.
Right. Which I hate to compromise, especially if this is already a bit smaller than the existing community center. I'm just, imagining. And I'll be honest, I think that the vestibule in the management of locking those when the multipurpose room should not be in use, it seems like a lot. It also feels strange to have to go through the bathroom vestibule to get to the multipurpose room. Like there should be like a double door entrance to it somewhere. I think that those are my comments for now. I'm interested to hear from my other council members.
Thank you, Councilwoman Chris McKeith. Councilwoman Neff.
Thank you. First of all, Eli, I wanted to thank you for providing this information. I had asked for consideration by the Facilities Committee for a multi-purpose room to be preserved in this location so we don't lose the youth center we have now. I couldn't be more pleased to see this. So thank you, Facilities, for providing us this view. I'm just looking at costs. I think you said, Eli, this will be around $350,000.
Yes, with all the implications I described, yes.
So at least from my perspective, I mean, the police building, I think we're saying it's going to be around over 7.6 million and upwards of that. To add 350,000 to a nearly $8 million building to preserve that multi-purpose room, to me, I believe is financially a very good way to approach this, because it would enable us to deal with two items on that site: the police building that needs to be redone, at the same time the need to have a space for our youth to use. And I think that the location where it is now is the best location, and I think we should really look into preserving it the way it's here. I do agree with Councilwoman Keith's comment that entering through the bathroom vestibule is strange. Maybe we should redesign the bathrooms so that we can fit in the storage, and think of through that kitchenette where you need those doors, Eli, that you mentioned. But it seems to me that this is a doable project, but financially, in my mind, makes sense. I mean, we were looking at a $700,000 renovation of Bicentennial Hall for several purposes, including this one. And to me, in terms of what we should accomplish this year, as a council, my personal opinion, because I don't think we can tackle it all. It gives me comfort that the cost of doing this is actually lower than tackling Bicentennial Hall. And like I said, it enables us to do two things in one construction site. So those would be my comments. I think we should definitely, I would encourage other council members to look at this, and maybe we should spend a little bit more time figuring out the entrance and figuring out changes to the bathroom as needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you. Yeah, once we get the direction, and sounds like we're getting people to coalesce around some concepts here, we can take this back, grab all of the feedback that was given, and re-render this facility. I think that this is a good compromise where we had an open area and now we have a closed area. We have to, it's good that you guys all can be part of this design phase, because not everybody was part of the designs for the DPW and the ADA capabilities over at Bicentennial Hall. And this actually, I can see that we're coming to a good place, though there are energy efficiency requirements and code aspects that people are appreciating that go into all of this. So we could take this back as a facilities committee and bring something back. Don't know what the time frame would be. I'd have to defer to Eli. We'd probably have to workshop this in a facilities committee session, and then it's going to take time to render those drawings for review by the council, and then maybe get them ready for bid specs. So it sounds like a couple of months worth of work to me, just knowing what we've done in the past, and how long it takes to do those kinds of things. So again, I'm supportive of this. Just wanted to lay out for people to understand what it'll take to get there. It's not going to happen in a week or two. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some effort, some iterations, and then we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Koch.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow council members. I think this is a very workable plan. But I do have some concerns about entering the multi-purpose room. But I'm sure that, some alternative entrances or egress to that particular room can be built. But I have a question. The kitchenette, is that just an amenity, or is there a reason why we have to have a kitchenette? To me, it's just one more thing to maintain and take care of.
Someone had asked for it in the prior meeting. I don't recall who it was.
Betsy, almost all it wasn't me, but I will say, I know that there's one over at Bicentennial Hall and there is one at the community center now. And the groups, at least that I participate in, use it every time they meet there.
Okay.
I would agree. I mean, if there is an event that there's food involved, it does help to have a clean area and a way to make sure that basic cleaning is done. I can see that we might want to do a minimal kitchenette there. We might regret not having it if we don't put it in.
Okay. And how do you envision the kitchenette, how it's going to look? Is it just basically countertops with the sink, or are you going to put a stove or refrigerator in?
We would probably put a fridge and a microwave, but you don't want to put a stove, because if you have an open flame, you get into a much more expensive situation with hoods for fire safety and so on.
Okay.
So we don't want to, that's a big step up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Koch. Councilman McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor. Perks are going on the tail end. The kitchenette raised some concerns. So I'm just gonna kind of address that. Happy to hear about the stove, because I was foreshadowing hoods, exhaust, and lots of additional costs there. I mean, that's a big change, 350K, when the themes have been lowering costs to add this, so somewhat reluctant, but spirit of compromise, if this kind of helps more governing bodies get on board, could be persuaded. Just a few quick questions. Has anything changed regarding the actual police department storage? Is it shorter?
No, nothing's changed.
So the bay, was it 24 feet deep?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
And that was the original depth?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we went over some things like that with Chief, what he needs to actually get his vehicles parked in there. Other things, everything old is new again. Originally, facilities seemed to be some excitement behind community center, multi-purpose room. And then there was some pushback from the neighbors. And so we listened and we took it off the table. Now it's back again. I think replacing the community center, that space for activities is great. So generally behind it, I would like to see some changes. The first thing that is one of the original drawings had these entrances on the east and west side. And, practically that was kind of called out as not a good idea. Eli, how close are we to the property line on the east side?
There's enough room there. It's pretty close, but I think there's enough room there. Hold on, and I can pull that up. Yeah, you see, here's the property line. The building's here. There's
Okay.
plenty of room. So I just want to make one comment about, and I agree, it's the current configuration needs to be refined, but do keep in mind that my understanding is that you want to be able to get to the bathrooms and use them even if the multipurpose room is closed. So there's going to have to be some combination of interior and exterior doors so that you can use the bathrooms as an adjunct to the multipurpose room at times, and other times use them from the outside without going through the multipurpose room. So, that just keep that in mind, that these two different modes have very different requirements in terms of access.
That is on kind of the top of my mind. And for access too, Eli, would pulling that kind of middle part out and kind of tacking it onto the end, would that help?
Let me tack it on here.
So just kind of taking out that whole middle part and putting at the end of the building.
When you say the middle part, what are you referring to?
The bathrooms.
Oh, this whole thing, you mean?
Yes.
And moving it here?
Yes.
I'm not sure that helps you. But the other thing is we wanted to put the open side of the building facing the recreation center. That was we will make some sketches of alternatives, but keep in mind that they're going to require reconfiguring this area, which was not part of the cost of the design, the construction cost. And I don't know what implications that's going to have until we do it. So.
Yeah, and that's just a big kind of question to have that little alleyway on the east side kind of turn into a blind spot, hang out, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we're getting somewhere, I'm happy to see progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Cole, before you go, I just want to mention we're over our time here. We're going to go another 10 minutes at the most, and then we're going to move over to our normal Borough Council meeting. At that point, we're going to put the DPW discussion phase of this special meeting on the agenda. It will be between workshop and public comment. So you can consider that 6A on your normal meeting. And anyone on the facilities committee, please log on as an attendee and we will promote you to a facilitator position. And then the public, you will get the opportunity to comment on anything that you might want to comment right after the discussion on DPW during the normal meeting. So, and with that, Councilwoman Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to say that I support a plan to recapture the youth/community facilities or multipurpose room if we're going to go ahead with the PD. So to me, these decisions are in tandem. They benefit one another. I also think the location of this particular use is probably the right place. It's centrally located within the borough. I agree that the windows on the south side open to the play area and everything is what makes the most sense. I think obviously there's some reconfiguration issues, as Eli, you're making note of. And certainly the specific feedback that you've got in the way, the vestibules and, but they do have to function separately from the multipurpose room. So there is going to be a little play. But this is a good thing. I would also like to believe that some of the estimates are, a little protective and that maybe the bids will come in lower. That I feel is more than hopeful, but hopefully a reality. What else do I need to say on this? I am not in favor of drawings going back into committee. I think we're getting somewhere with this process. I would be in favor of Eli going back to his office with his team and coming back to council. We are right at the 10-yard line. And I feel like we don't need months. Chris, and I'm thinking about the committee and all the work you've done, but I think that we are within striking distance of completing this and moving to bid specs and construction drawings and going out to bid. So that's, I would like as a council to continue the follow through that we are so close. I would even be willing to talk about coming back at maybe not this next coming council meeting, but the following. So only 30 days out so that we can really take action expeditiously. That is perhaps another conversation when you hear from other council people, but that's how I would like to do this. I don't want to spend a lot more time on reconfiguring this. I think most of the ideas are here. It's just a matter of a little bit of some reworking in the drawings. And while there might be a cost associated with that, there are some soft costs that you've penciled out for us, Eli. And, now's the right time to spend a little bit of money to draw things a little bit better and get the right thing. So that would be my thought. Let's finish this, guys. We're so close. And I think we're getting to a place that's very good for Fairhaven, but in part because we're working together at the council level. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cole. Before we look for a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting, I'd just like to ask anyone on the facilities committee if they have any comment on the building in the back of the police department before we move on.
I just have a comment about the whole vestibule issue. Maybe something to consider, Eli, is to move to create like a breezeway between the two.
I've already considered, I'm making a sketch right now. I think we
Right.
need to put a breezeway through here, move the bathrooms down so that you, so that you can get to the bathrooms and the multipurpose room from a common place. But it's going to take a little bit of room out of the multipurpose room.
So if you put it on the other side where the kitchenette side, and you created the breezeway there, move the kitchenette. I mean, if we're talking about $350,000, why not add another 5 feet to the building? I mean, and just to push the
think
building
that's a-
out to create the breezeway.
I think that that's a very good idea, and that will solve everything, I think.
We're constrained, don't forget, by the, we can't go into the park area. So we gotta make-
Understood, but if you look back at the site plan,
Mm-hmm.
this was 20 feet. So it looks like there's about another 20 feet.
that's fine.
And we're already coming out 10. If we come out another 5, we should still be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Eli, you did mention the possibility of doing this building as an addendum if we wanted to get the bid out faster. Is that
Yes.
still a thought or not?
That's still a thought. Obviously, we wouldn't want to go out to bid until we make these changes because they're pretty substantial. So
Just so we're clear, you'll have to send us a proposal for the additional work?
I sent you a proposal, or I sent you an email with the order of magnitude of what the fees would be and the construction. That was on June 3rd.
Right, but you didn't actually send us a proposal to approve. The governing body would have to approve that.
Right, and I would have to now go back to our engineers. I'd have to come up with a sketch that incorporates all this, have you approve it, then go back to our consultants and figure out if any of what we're doing changes what their fees would be.
May I ask a question briefly to Eli?
Yes, we got 3 minutes.
Okay, Eli, if you do the breezeway and go out the extra 5 feet, can you eliminate that door on the east side that is closer to the neighbor? I'm just thinking whether we can change the circulation so that nobody needs to go behind the building. I hadn't thought about that, but thank you, Councilman McHugh, for mentioning it. If we could avoid circulation on the back, on that east side, such
Yeah, I think
that we're
that's
not
gonna be-
bothering the neighbor, I think it'll be a good thing, as well as maintaining the roof line and the building, looking as low profile as possible. I think that was another thing that people thought, that the earlier idea of a rec center there was humongous, something very low profile.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a problem to get rid of that east door if we put the breezeway.
Thank you. That would
This
be
is-
helpful.
This is Sonia Trombino. I was wondering if I can ask a question.
Sonia?
So I know over in that area, there's a wall that's used for tennis and lacrosse where people, they practice against that wall. What's the impact to that wall? Because I know we have talked about in the past that, coming down and being rebuilt. So what's the impact to that wall?
That wall is coming down. It's right here. That's where the wall is.
Sonia, it's already, and I believe, and I don't know who could speak to, but it's kind of already crumbling and falling apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it needs to come down for sure. But I know we had talked about, I think there was an organization and maybe one of the other council members may recall this, where an organization wanted to partially fund putting that wall either there or somewhere else. I was just wondering about that, because when that comes down, people may, wonder what the alternate location would be for that.
Yeah, I could speak to that, Sonia. That's still a possibility. The rec committee was reviewing it for a while. It had been previously approved by prior governing bodies, and we are working on determining whether or not it can be achieved. And it was at the time it had been proposed at Fairhaven Fields. So I can fill you in more offline. just so I know we're over on.
Yeah, I just think that when that wall goes down, I think we need to inform the residents, what's happening, where it will be replaced, if it will be replaced, and so on.
100%. Thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw out one last food for thought, Eli. Potentially keep the clear story ceiling inside and just do exposed ductwork to save some money. It's also not a bad look if you do it right, but why don't you think about that so you know what the cost difference might be?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, we're going to jump over to the regular council meeting. Again, we're going to put the DPW discussion as 6A on the agenda. With that being said, do I have a motion from anyone to adjourn?
Eli, do you have an invitation to the regular meeting?
I don't know if I do. This is not, that's a separate invitation.
Yeah, it's a separate meeting.
Yeah, I'd appreciate if someone would email me that invitation and also send me a text when you think you're getting to this issue, because I assume you don't.
We're going to put it up first, Eli, right? Pretty quickly at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, so just send me the link.
I'm editing it now, Eli.
Thank you. So I'm gonna get off.
Yeah, I'm going to end this.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 7:16 PM.